Welcome everybody to the April meeting of the BBAA. And I see that George is still not on screen.
He's over there. He's double timing with
Well, while we're waiting, I can tell you that I still have not received word yet on the Boardwalk Astronomy if we're going to have it. I got an email yesterday from Chuck Dibbs, and he had emailed that event company that handles the event, and they don't think it's going to happen. So that's what he indicated, but they haven't got official word yet.
Well, don't give up. I think it's gonna be improved by July. I'm just gonna fill out a month, July.
I think so too. I don't know what the details are though with company, with their contract they have with the city, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But as soon as I know, I'll probably just send an email to everybody and let them know. I'm actually logging in just to make sure Chuck doesn't send me an email in the last few hours. And he didn't. Let's see. Well, I know that George wants to expedite through this process because we have a presentation from Samantha tonight. Thank you, Samantha. And she needs time to answer questions at the end. Is this a presentation you gave at school, Samantha, too? You're muted right now.
You're still muted, Samantha.
Pop-up has the controls, that's why.
Yeah, I'm.
Oh yeah, that's a bad move.
I'm trying to get my screen. I'm trying to get the schedule up. I couldn't do it on the Chromebook, so let's try this. Can you see that?
Starting.
Yeah. It's working.
There you go. You got it.
Okay, we'll roll into the vice president report.
Here's the month of April. Obviously, we are here on April Fool's Day, and I'm sorry I forgot to put any posting on Facebook or Groups.io about the meeting tonight. I totally forgot. And of course, it says we're at TCC, which we're not. But tomorrow night is Corn Watch at Cornland Park. This Saturday is Sky Watch, and the forecast looks like it's going to be a good schedule. This is wrong. This should be Night Watch, should be on the 17th. I don't know how that happened, but tomorrow night is Sky Watch, and then the following. Oh no, there we go. That's the 10th. The following Friday, or actually, we had a cancellation here. Following Friday the 9th, Corn Watch again. Night Watch on the 10th, which is a week from this Saturday. And I'm hoping to have 3 of my granddaughters with me at the Chapokes Plantation State Park. Hope the weather holds. Now on 20th at 8:30, Garden Stars at Norfolk Botanical Garden. And guess who the presenter is going to be? Samantha. What did I do? What did I do? I just touched her.
Stop letting him touch.
What did I do? All right, go back to the I clicked on Garden Stars by mistake. Come on, get up. All right, let's get that event calendar back up, physically up, and back down. Okay, Garden Stars on the 20th, and then on the 23rd, I've got a meeting with some or a presentation to some American Heritage Girl and Trail Life Boys. It's the an alternative to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and I could use maybe 1 or 2 people to help. We're going to give them some work on their astronomy merit badges, looking through the telescope, identifying constellations, and so forth. On the 24th of April is Saturday, Sunday. We had a good Sunday last Saturday. Mel and Dave Dickinson and I were there. We had about 13 visitors. Okay, getting into the month of May. Now, our monthly meeting will be on the 7th of May. Corn Watch, on the 6th of May. Sky Watch is the 1st of May. May Day, May Day, May Day. Sky Watch on May Day. Corn Watch on the 7th, Night Watch on the 8th, Corn Watch on the 14th, another Garden Stars on the 18th. And you said Boardwalk Astronomy is still up in the air, Sean? Sean's muted. I guess he said that. Okay, on the 29th is Saturday, Sunday. That takes us through the month of May, and 1st of June, 3rd of June is our next monthly meeting after that. Any questions? Any
No, I'm
questions?
just impressed
Can
when
anybody
I
hear
see
me?
the sunsets being so late and getting later every day.
So just for clarification, George, Night Watch is going to be on April 10th. Is that correct?
April 10th, yes. Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. April 10th. For
All
some
right.
reason, the line didn't show up on that calendar separating the weeks. No, there's no line there, but that's 2 separate weeks. So the 3rd is Sky Watch.
Look at your
Night
month.
Watch.
Look at the month of the calendar. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's right. All right. Very good.
April and May. Okay. All right. Any questions? Okay, let me dump out of that.
You can hit stop share.
Hmm?
You can hit stop share.
Stop share. That's right. Stop share. I knew there was a way to do that. There we go. Back to you, Sean. Sean?
Thank
Hello,
you,
Sean.
Cor-
And you, there you go.
Next, we have the secretary report from Jeff.
I make a motion that we dispense reading the minutes.
Okay.
We have a second.
Yep, a second. He raised his hand.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
That was awesome secretary report, Jeff.
Next up, we got the treasurer report.
All right. We making that cash, yo. So through the month, we had 5 new members join. We paid a little bit. So we're up about $87 in the month. We still got quite a bit in the general fund. And then we have our scholarship funds are nice and locked and loaded. 134 members on the roster. Like I said, we had 5 join this month, 5 joined last month. So things are going up. And there's a couple people who are due this month. So I got to reach out to them and get that cash. That's all I got. I probably need to send, I got to figure out in Chuck's cool spreadsheet how to break down the AL roster so I can update it. I think shouldn't be that hard, and send it to Bruce because it's been a while probably since we've updated our roster with the Astronomical League. That's all I got.
Hey, Rich.
Yes, sir.
If you look at the column headers in the spreadsheet,
That's all the ones that are called AL data.
yeah,
Just copy them all.
those column, what you do is make a copy of that sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, make a copy of that sheet and then delete all the other columns. And leave
Gotcha.
the ones that say AL, and then take off all the coloring and formatting and everything, and that's what gets sent to the AL.
Gotcha. I hadn't sit there and thought through it yet, but I figured there was probably an easy way to do it. So I'm glad.
Yep.
And I just sent it to Bruce, right?
Yeah, Bruce. He's supposed to send it to the guy that there's a point of contact specifically. It's got to be sent to once a quarter, about a month. Actually, it's about 6 weeks before the start of the next reflector or the publication of the next reflector, so it can everybody gets the right magazines and stuff.
Yeah, I better get that out. And if I can figure out who that point of contact is,
Sean or Chuck,
and cut out, I'd rather cut out Bruce if I can. Less points of failure.
Right. I think in my pass down, I might have, or one of the emails, I might have given you the point of contact. I'll make a note because it's easier for me to find it because I probably have him on a link.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great if you could send it to me. Otherwise,
Or AL. All right, I'll get that to you, Rich.
awesome. That's all I got.
Thank you,
I got a
Rick.
question, Sean or Chuck. How up to date is the roster in NSN? I think there's some
It
people
is-
on there who have already died. I don't know how,
I have never deleted. Well, last year I did a purge of people in there, but I didn't do one this year. Before
I can go through and check to see if there's people who are in Night Sky Network but not on our roster, even though that will be kind of a pain in the butt. But if I can find free time, it's something I could do.
labor intensive things to do.
I don't know if I really feel a great desire to do that. It sounds pretty tedious, but
Rich, if you send me the
well,
roster, I'll do it for you. You hear me? Rich, did you hear me?
I did.
Rich, he said, send
Okay.
him a roster.
Yeah, you
If
send
you
me
would,
the
send me a
roster, I'll
copy
do it
too.
for you.
Appreciate it.
I know you're busy, that's why I got it. I got you. Let's see, I don't see Ben here, so I don't think there's a scholarship report today. I don't see Bruce, so no Alcor report. I don't see Bird, no triple RT report.
So we can get right to the good stuff.
Yeah,
Hey,
so
John, this is Chuck. This is getting to be about the time of the year when you ought to be starting to check the mailbox pretty regular for scholarship applications.
yeah,
Specific deadline when they have to be received and promulgated to Ben. Now, Ben does have a key to the mailbox now.
yeah, he should be checking it every day or every once a week is what he said, if I remember right. But since he's not here, I will go over there if I have to. If one of you guys is closer and wants to stop in, let me know. But otherwise, I'm gonna go check it since I can't verify with Ben if he has or not.
Do you guys know where Ben's business is?
Yes,
It's right close to the school, Chuck Dibbs' school.
yeah,
In fact, it's the. if
I
you-
know where his office is, and I'm not that far away. I'm at the Bayside area, so I can run over there. It only takes me about 15 minutes to get there, rather
okay.
than you come up from Chester.
I appreciate that, George.
I've
Let
got a
me know.
key.
You do have a key, right?
Yeah, I'll check with Ben.
Okay,
Yeah, I do.
alrighty. Let's go into the old business so we can move along for Samantha. Only thing I got on here was the newsletter input. Make sure you're getting input to Rich for now until we find another newsletter editor. If you know if someone wants to do the newsletter, let us know, especially Rich. I told you guys about the boardwalk astronomy. There's no word yet. The email I got said we should have some answers when we meet with the city tomorrow, which was today, but they never emailed me. So hopefully I'll know something by this weekend. And that's all the old business I got. Is anyone else got old business to discuss? I guess I do have one more thing. I passed down with Chuck. We talked about that at the last meeting. And if you need your password reset for your email address, all that stuff, let me know. He showed me how to do everything. He gave me all the paperwork so I can manage the accounts, the email accounts and website. All right. If we don't have any other old business, though, we go on to new business. Does anybody have any new business? Is everybody's mic muted? Is that what's going on? It's very quiet. Okay. If there's no new business, that's fine. Anybody got any observing reports?
Hey, I finally got my last object on the urban list. I went out on the back deck a couple nights ago when it was clear. Well, I went out 2 nights in a row. First night, the moon was right there, and I'm trying to find this dim fuzzy object, and I couldn't even see a star, let alone the nebula. But NGC 32 or 3242 is the ghost of Jupiter, also called the Eye Nebula. So the next night I went out there, and of course the moon comes up later each night, so it was blocked by my house. And so I zeroed in on the area where I thought it was supposed to be, and I tried something. I used it's a little 6-inch telescope that Chuck brought over to my house last week. I said, well, let's try this. So I got a 2-star alignment, and I said, find NGC 3242. It went there. I couldn't see it. I saw 2 little dim stars. But I looked around. I was familiar with the area. I saw some stars I recognized. So I got Samantha's 8-inch Dob and aimed at it. And I used my binoculars to star hop from Alphard, which is Alpha Hydra, down to Mu Hydra, which is the star right above NGT 42. And went down and looked around. And I said, well, that's where it's supposed to be, because I recognize these stars and these 2 stars and these 2 stars. It's got to be somewhere right in there. So I aimed the 8-inch for that area, and voila, I found it. This fuzzy little blob.
Congratulations.
So that
on
was
finishing that.
NGC 3242. Hey, Eddie, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys. I was having trouble getting on. I was about ready to give up. You changed things around on me on Zoom.
Anybody else got observing reports?
Yeah, I've been trying to split double stars pretty much the entire month, and I find that I'm not very good at it. Managed to get maybe a couple, and that was it. I don't know if it's the seeing conditions, or I don't know if you guys are using different filters than what I'm trying to use, but I'm not very good at it right now. So,
Have you tried Caster? Caster's a tough one on a small scope.
I believe I was trying Pollux, and I think that's one of the ones that I actually was able to get. But there was several others that was just not. I couldn't get them out. I couldn't make them out as 2 different objects.
Caster's real close together.
James, are you following the Astronomical League's double star list?
No, I'm just going, and I know a decent number of them, so I'm just picking ones out that I feel like I can see from my location, without the house getting in the way or without the street light being in the way. So
Yeah, because I think the AL list,
Go to the
it
AL.
also lists the separation. Because if you're just looking at catalog double stars, some of them may be like so close that you need insane magnification to be able to split. The AL list actually lists the separation. So, and most of them are pretty wide.
And the AL list is a good source to give you an idea of what to look for and what constellation to look for it in. So that's it gives you 100 objects, and if you can't find a couple of them, look somewhere else for something else.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how to do those lists. Is that something you print off like PDF or something?
Yeah. If you go to the AL website and their observing programs, if you go to the double star program, usually there'll be an attachment. There'll be, some of them will either give you an Excel spreadsheet or it'll just be a PDF. You don't have to do the program. It just is a good guide of things to, like, these are some targets that are probably pretty reasonable to go after.
Appreciate the advice. Thanks.
Yeah, go to astroleague.org. Astroleague.org is their website. And there you go. There it is. Go to the double star observing program, scroll down to the bottom of that page. There should be a PDF file. This shows the requirements, and the PDF file should show you the list. Actually, now nowadays they have, yeah, there we go. There it is.
Yeah, and then this was in PDF and it showed it was also in Excel if you want to manipulate it your own.
Okay.
Here's the Excel format.
Thank you, Sean.
Obviously, so you can just click edit and then manipulate the data there.
No, you're still sharing your browser. But
Is that good?
we're good.
Thanks.
I was gonna say too that I think Kent told me that he found a way to take an eyepiece and he taped off like half of it. And he would use that to block out when he was looking at double stars, and he would use the tape and he would block out like the brighter star so he could see the dimmer star.
Yeah, I've done that with Kent. He takes a little tiny dot of heavy black electrician's tape, like a little bit bigger than maybe a small letter O off of your keyboard or something, very tiny, and he puts that on the eyepiece, maybe not in the center, but, and then he'll use that black dot to block the primary star's light, and that's how he sees the companion star.
So you may want to try that technique. If Ken's doing it, it's got to be what the cool thing
Yeah,
to do.
I wouldn't put that black tape on your Nagler though. I think he was using a fossil.
What Nagler?
Anybody else have observer reports though?
Hey, Sean, yeah, I've been pretty much looking at a few nebulas lately in the Sagittarius area.
Mhm.
The Trifid Nebula, and let's see, I think Swan was out there. And I did go to the Serpens constellation, and I tell you, the Eagle Nebula, man, that was wild. That was really nice.
Didn't you post some photos online too? Is that you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, those were cool.
I know, talking to George, I think, yeah, I know last year, I know we talked about, trying to get more people putting photos up there and getting people interested. So that's why I keep throwing them up there.
Well, continue to do so. I think I enjoy them. I know that.
Oh, good. I enjoy taking them.
That's it. I'm glad someone does. I don't like doing astrophotography, so you keep doing that. I like looking at them.
Yeah. Well, I did an all-nighter a couple of nights ago, and it was stuff comes up late.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to figure out, is that astrophotography. I mean, I've been a still photographer all my life with a handheld camera, but once you start pointing to the heavens, man, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yep. I'll use my cell phone. That's fine. That's about as far as
Yeah.
I go.
That's what best way of doing it is with these Google phones, right, Sean?
Yeah. That's why I bought the one I did, because of the phone you got.
You and me both, I tell you. Takes all the hard work out of it.
Yes, it does.
Problem is, it just can't get really close to the eyepiece without a lot of manipulating.
No, you do. We need to get Bob to make you something to hold it. That's what it is. Does anybody else have observer reports? All righty. I guess we're ready for the presentation. Without any further ado, Sam, you're up.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know you, I'm Samantha Burris. I'm George Reynolds' granddaughter. And this presentation I actually just recently put together. I'm doing it for a project for school.
You're a senior.
Oh, I'm a senior in high school
Princess Anne.
at Princess Anne. Thank you. I didn't practice the introduction very much. I practiced the presentation, not my introduction.
Yeah, she knows who she is.
And so this presentation is actually geared more toward giving at a public event. It's something that I want to give at Garden Stars specifically. So this is more of a trial run, and I kind of want to get your feedback on it. I actually created a little survey at the end that I'll post in the chat. But yeah, so I just want to kind of run through it with you guys, see what you think, see if it's worth presenting.
She calls us experts.
Yeah. So yeah, so we'll get into it then.
Did you share the screen?
No, I guess I should probably share the screen. Let me-
There you go.
Okay. Share the screen.
I've done that before too, so I know.
Okay. Oh no, this is covering the present. Okay, can everyone see the screen all right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm
Yep.
gonna make this. All right, so I titled it Light Pollution, Astronomical Problems of the Modern World. I thought you might like the play on words with my title. All right, so what's the deal with artificial light? So first I want to talk about fear of the dark. I think it's a pretty fair assumption to say that most people at some point in their lives have some fear of the dark, whether it's as a child, even as an adult, whether it's conscious or subconscious, there is always something tied to the fear of the dark, and it's a very real anxiety. And that's something that you see throughout history, and it's especially prevalent in the early times before we had a lot of this artificial light. And this is a good quotation to kind of summarize that. So it says, when the sun went down, navigation of terrain became more treacherous. Nocturnal predators began their prowl. The threat of succumbing to illness seemed to intensify, and the risk of fires from candles and oil lamps rose. Pillaging, murder, theft, drunkenness, and prostitution were often deeds of the dark, after the government and church powers that ruled the day ceased their activities. On top of all of this, dark spiritual powers could instill dread in people's hearts, whether it was the stars and planets cursing men's fates, or the legions of evil forces, ghosts and spirits, witches and demons, and other mystical and diabolical entities looking for prey. Darkness in the early modern world would summon the worst elements in man, nature, and the cosmos. So that kind of is why that kind of explains why artificial light is so important to humans. Has anybody heard of Nightfall? It's a short story by Isaac Asimov.
It's one of my favorite. It's a great story. And a quick read. You only need a few hours.
So yeah, it was. And I read it as part of my research. And so I actually wanted to talk about that because it fits in so perfectly with what I wanted to talk about. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's a 1941 short story that describes a planet called Lagash, which is full of these people who have never known what night is because it has 6 suns and there's always at least one sun up. So all they ever know is the daylight. And to really summarize it, there's a collection of these scientists, this commonly scorned cult that has these beliefs that most people just, they completely disregard. And the scientists come to realize that some of what the cult is saying is sort of true, and they learn with about 2 months notice that doom will soon be upon Lagash, but no one really believes this theory. And the doom that they're talking about is, actually first I want to say that archaeology has shown that 9 civilizations have existed on Lagash and reached heights similar to that of the current civilization, but all of them seem to have been destroyed by fire. And what the scientists came to realize was that the destruction timeline actually coincides with the eclipse of the star Beta, which at that point in time, every 2,500 years or so, is the one star in the sky, and it gets eclipsed by this object. And so it ends up enshrouding the planet in this night. And no one is used to that. No one knows what that night looks like. And so when they see the sky full of these stars and they experience darkness for the first time, they begin to freak out. I mean, it's something they've never known. And so this eclipse happens every 2,500 years, and people are so afraid of the dark that they are the ones who create the fire that destroy their civilizations. They set anything they can find on fire because they're so desperate for that light. And so I think it's a really interesting story, and you think about it, and it seems awfully extreme, but looking at how things are today, it's actually not quite that far-fetched. For example, in 1994, there was an earthquake that caused a blackout in Los Angeles. And when those lights went out, the residents who had been woken up by this earthquake looked outside and they saw this glowing cloud in the sky, and they had no idea what it was. And so they were so confused and so overwhelmed that they ended up calling these various emergency centers to report it. But in reality, they were seeing the Milky Way for the first time. And so that kind of harkens back to the people on Lagash. And like I said, it's really not all that far-fetched based on where we are today. So on average, how many stars would you say that you could see at night from your backyard?
I'm lucky if I can see a dozen.
3,000.
Oh, wow.
Look at a nice backyard.
I see about 2 dozen maybe if I'm really lucky.
I can get to 4.5 magnitudes naked eye.
If I'm really lucky, I
Yeah,
can.
so I mean, there you go. You're fine. I just can't see who's talking. Okay. Well, yeah. So anyway, what the point I want to make is that for the most part, you're from where most people live, you're not going to see a lot of stars. And I know, and this second question is more tailored to who I'm going to be presenting, just the public. But I know that a lot of you have been in places that are completely devoid of artificial light. But the point is that most people have not been, whether they live in places that have a lot of light pollution. Most people, you're going to have to travel a really long distance to get to a place that does not have any sky glow at all. So why does this matter? So did you know that some of the brightest objects in the sky, such as Orion or the Pleiades, are not completely visible from a lot of cities? Light from Los Angeles can be seen up to 200 miles away from the city. Light from Las Vegas is visible from 8 different national parks. And the worst part of all of this is that most people have no idea that the night sky is fading. Did someone? Oh yeah,
Good for
Chuck.
Chuck. Good for Chuck.
We're all jealous. Okay, so now let's talk about light pollution. What is light pollution? According to the International Dark Sky Association, it is the inappropriate or excessive use of artificial light. And there are 4 different types. There's light trespass, which is a sort of invasive lighting. For example, a neighbor's porch light. Another one is light clutter, which is confusing, bright, excessive lighting that you can kind of see in that picture, where this whole street is lit up just street light after street light after street light, when you really only need a fraction of those to actually light up the street, but you're just using more than you need. There's glare, which is a contrast between light and dark that can cause visual discomfort. For if you're like a pedestrian or a motorist, it could cause temporary blindness, that kind of idea. And then there's sky glow, which is uncontained light that brightens sky over inhabited areas like cities. And sky glow is the most visible effect of light pollution, and that's mostly what I'm going to focus on in this presentation. So you hear about air pollution and you hear about water pollution and land pollution on the news. There's legislation to combat that, but where does light pollution come in? Where do you hear about that? And chances are you really probably don't. Most people don't even recognize that light pollution exists, let alone that it's a major problem. And it is a problem that's relatively easily solved. If you just turn off the lights, it's gonna mitigate all of that sky glow. You can see that in the big city blackouts, or you can see the stars that you obviously can't see if all the lights are on. But really, the longer that the problem is ignored, the more consequences there are going to be, and those are less easily solved. So some consequences of light pollution: there are global ecological consequences, there's public health issues, it wastes energy and money. Some specific examples: we have the disruption of animal breeding instincts. For example, sea turtles who want to come and lay their eggs at night on the beach, they rely on the darkness. The only light they expect to see is the light of the moon, but the light on shore often confuses them, and so it messes up those instincts and confuses them. Similarly, the migration of birds and insects are impacted with the lights that are on all night long. There are even natural human patterns, such as sleep cycles, are impacted by light pollution. There is research that shows that tapering your light exposure prior to going to sleep actually leads to a more natural sleep routine and better health overall. And then there's one study that shows that bright neighborhoods may lead or may correlate with a higher rate of breast cancer. And I know there's that whole idea of correlation does not equal causation, but it's an interesting thought to think about, and I would definitely be interested to see if further research is done on that point. So I want to look at the history of artificial light. Something that I completed recently was a research essay that did look at the timeline of artificial light. And my research question was, how was the widespread introduction of electric light in the late 1870s a turning point that altered humans' perceptions of the significance of astronomy? So I looked at the whole timeline of light over time, but I found that the 1870s was really when light pollution was introduced on a large scale, on a global scale really, and started altering how people see astronomy, appreciate it, understanding of just the overall perception that they have of its significance as a science. Okay. Yeah, so first I want to start with this little story. Millions of years ago, in a time that no modern human mind or historical record can detail, there existed a blanket of darkness known as night. It was a regular phenomenon that would have been all-consuming if it were not for the thousands of shining spheres high above the earth that were able to pierce the sky's black canvas. This was a time when the moon and the stars were the sole sources of light once the sun descended below the horizon. And it was during this period that human history began. Early humans existed as early as 2.8 million years ago, but because evidence indicates that they started using fire between 1.5 and 2 million years ago, there was an extensive period during which they depended on the light of the stars to provide relief from the dark. However, starlight soon became insufficient, and humans' innate need for further illumination prompted a search for more effective lighting methods that span across millennia. Although the stars retained a sense of reverence for most of human history, it is only in relatively recent years that their physical presence, along with most individuals' knowledge concerning them and their respective science of astronomy, has all but disappeared. So this is a very condensed version of the timeline of light that I looked into. First, we have stars, then we have fire, we have candles and lamps that were kind of in the same era, and then we have electric light, which is the technology that we have today. So I'm going to look into each of these a little bit more in depth. So of course we have the stars and the moon, of course, but they were our first source of light. If we're going to look at the timeline, it's really important to start at the beginning. And so all things considered, the stars have been present throughout all of our history, and it's only in relatively recent years that they have begun disappearing. So secondly, we have fire, and fire is the artificial light that has defined countless millennia of human history. Before we began inventing all this technology, that was the source of light that we had. And the first controlled use of fire by early humans, the time frame of that is disputed, but estimates span from hundreds of thousands to almost 2 million years ago. So obviously we've not had electric light for that long. And for a very long time, like I said, this is the only artificial light that we had. So candles and lamps, like I said, sort of in the same era. Candles and the lamps, it really depended on your economic status as to what you could afford. but generally tallow candles and rush lights were commonly used in expensive lighting methods that were used for centuries. They were more tailored towards the poor people. They could afford those. Wealthier people were able to afford, beeswax candles, cleaner and brighter, spermaceti candles, which I have some examples of those over on the left. And then we have lamps. There were kerosene lamps. Later on, there were different types of fuels like whale, grape, flax, oil, stuff like that, that could be used to light those lamps. And sometimes they replaced candles, but they became a preferred lighting method. And something I did not include on the timeline, but I feel is really important to reference, is the idea that streetlights did not originate with electric light. There were some, obviously they existed beforehand. The 18th century marked the initial spread of these streetlights, and American street lamps were actually privately operated until the mid 1700s. And yes, they had lamp lighters to light these lamps. And so you didn't like flip the switch and turn on a lamp. So, but big cities actually eventually took over some of these, the street lighting. Gas lamps replaced oil lamps beginning around 1817. But the difference between these streetlights and the streetlights that came after the 1870s was that the light from these lamps was dim and sparsely distributed, sometimes intended not to illuminate the street, but to serve as navigation beacons. It was still so dark in those nights that unless pedestrians were actually directly underneath the lamp, they would have had difficulty identifying one another. So when you think about that, that's not going to cause the amount of sky glow that you see now, because like it said, you'd still have to be directly under the lamp for the light to be powerful enough to be of any real use. So this brings us to electric light. Arc lighting became prominent in the 1870s. It was both cheaper and brighter than gas. The light was easily spread across a large area, and you can see that in the picture on the right. You can just see how much space that light covers. I believe the date on this said 1892. It's super duper small up in the top. It was either 1882 or 1892. But it was, unlike earlier innovations in lighting, which had been metaphorically compared to the sun, arc lighting really did resemble sunlight. So this is the point in history when you start bringing the daytime into the nighttime. And this is considered the first type of lighting to really exhibit that night destroying brilliance that we know well today. So after electric light was introduced, lighting technology progressed really, really quickly. Thomas Edison, we know he invented the incandescent light bulb, but he was actually responsible, in addition to that, for the creation and the spread of entire electric utility companies. And this in particular accelerated the spread of electric light, extending its accessibility to individuals and businesses. And so really it just blew up after that. And lighting, later developments just quickly came back to back. There was fluorescent and neon lighting, the illumination of streets with much brighter street lights, houses and buildings with both interior and exterior lights, advertisements that lit up at night, and so much more. And electric lighting went from something of an urban novelty at the beginning of the 20th century to nearly a universal necessity by the time of the nation's post-war economic boom. And that just shows you the quick change in mindset of people once this technology became available. So the changes that brought, daytime activities and entertainment extended into the nighttime. And so that's where you have that nightlife that we know now. Houses and buildings had these blazing lights rather than flickering candlelight. And astronomers began feeling the effects of this increased illumination actually as early as 1887, and conditions really only worsened as time went on. Something that Thomas Edison himself said was, put an undeveloped human being into an environment where there's artificial light and he will improve. And that shows you the attitude that the people begin to have. And so this endorsement from respected figures did not help astronomy at all. In addition to Thomas Edison, other prominent individuals openly supported the growth of artificial light. In 1909, the Italian futurist Marinetti had a manifesto that actually encouraged people to kill the moonlight in favor of humans' artificial illumination at night. So considering this, light pollution simply was not a problem before the 1870s. Afterward, it was. So to kind of put this into perspective, and I'm going to make a lot of estimations here in terms of numbers for the sake of the math, the earliest humans lived roughly 2 million years ago. Light pollution became a problem around 1870. That means that 0.0075% of human history has been affected by light pollution, which means that more than 99.99% of human history has been able to see the stars and has had an unimpeded view of the night sky, which shows just how tiny the minority is that we are in now. So now I want to look at the significance of astronomy over time, and that to me it consists of these three factors, which is attitudes toward astronomy, the cultural value of astronomy, and the practical applications of astronomy, comparing the past perceptions and the present, just to show the difference. So first of all, attitudes toward astronomy. In the past, ancient civilizations held this clear, untarnished view of the night sky. The people who were scientifically minded would try and unlock the secrets of the universe. And the people who maybe weren't so scientifically minded could still admire the night sky without anything to obstruct their views. Entire populations found the night sky worthy of awe and contemplation, and it provided this real sense of wonder. It amazed and inspired our ancestors. According to Fabio Falci, which we'll talk more about him later, the artificial brightening of the night sky represents a profound alteration of a fundamental human experience. The opportunity for each person to view and ponder the night sky. And that attitude has existed, from almost all of human history up until where we are today. And so just looking at the past, the overall perception of astronomy is very positive, I would say. And then comparing that to the present, most people now barely notice that the night sky is fading. The view that our ancestors possessed, it really no longer exists. In the US alone, the Milky Way galaxy is invisible to 7 out of 10 people due to the light pollution that's surrounding their homes. And people now, more than ever, have the means to learn about the universe, but they lack the desire to do so, or they don't even know what they're missing. And so really indifference is the real danger here. Here's one example. I believe it's from the IDA website. This is a before picture of this location that's obviously affected by this light pollution. But then we have the after, when the power went out, and you can see just how much is hidden behind that bright artificial light. So now the cultural value of astronomy. In the past, of course, there are so many different civilizations and cultures that really valued astronomy, but I'm only going to talk about a couple. For example, the Greeks. We all know that they're responsible for a lot of the mythology associated with the stars. You know, we have the constellations. They named a lot and had stories about, a lot of the stars, celestial objects, all kinds of things. But actually the Egyptians held this value for astronomy as well. There are speculations that the pyramids actually were deliberately oriented in such a way that the 4 corners lined up with the cardinal points that that kind of shows that they may have been meant for astronomical uses. And then we have the afterlife. the Egyptians placed a lot of emphasis on the afterlife. I feel like that's a pretty common piece of knowledge. But recent research shows that these star tables were actually found inside of coffins, likely charts or almanacs that served as a sort of, map of the sky. And then even the ceilings of some tombs and temples and coffins were often illustrated to resemble the sky. And so just the simple idea that the afterlife, which is one of probably the primary parts of the Egyptian culture, the fact that astronomy is on that same level just shows how important it really was to them. And then there's these pyramid texts, these writings that they're called the pyramid texts, which detailed the belief that souls could be reborn as stars. For example, pharaohs would become circumpolar stars because they're up all year long, and so they're considered to be immortal. And something I didn't actually include on the slide, but I learned about recently, was the fact that Orion's belt, the orientation of Orion's belt actually matches the orientation of the 3 pyramids of Giza, which leads to the supposition that perhaps Orion's belt and these pyramids are believed to be this gateway to heaven, which was a belief obviously held by the Egyptians. So now, comparing to the present, while civilizations in the past were able to see the stars and study them, astronomy remains significant to some extent. But now, astronomy is no longer an integral part of our culture. And so a lot of that awe and all of that value that it held in the past, you don't really find that anymore. And after artificial illumination spiked in both power and distribution, astronomy's significance was really lost on people because the night sky was lost. Nowadays, people have to travel really long distances to find a dark sky where they're going to see a lot of the stars that people in the past were able to see. So many people have spent their whole lives in these brightly lit cities, so really they're completely unaware that there is a sight above their heads to behold, and that sight has endured across time, but they don't know what they're missing. So some statistics, these are just, 2 from so many, but I thought they were important to include. About 83% of the world and over 99% of Americans and Europeans live under light polluted skies. And 1/3 of all of humanity cannot see the Milky Way, including 60% of Europeans and nearly 80% of North Americans. So these maps show the density of light pollution. I have a picture from each continent, but this is from, I'll bring up the source later. I'm sure many of you know about it. It's the New World Atlas of Artificial Night Sky Brightness, and it shows the global impact of light pollution, both historical and current and future predictions of what it's going to look like based on current trends. So here's North America. You can see that there's a lot of light pollution here. Same thing in Europe. Almost the entire continent has at least some level of light pollution. And you compare that, well, actually, Asia also has a good amount in like China and India, but you compare that to Africa and you compare that to Australia. And I know that some of the terrain is different, but the fact that there are almost entire continents that are lacking in terms of light pollution, it really shows that obviously it's possible to live without it. And this is what we want our homes to look like, but it shows that we've got a pretty long way to go. And so, yeah, like I said, the source is the New World Atlas of Artificial Night Sky Brightness. Super cool resource. Really, really cool. You should check it out if you haven't already. So practical applications of astronomy is the third that I want to talk about. In the past, of course, celestial navigation was a big part of a lot of civilizations. Around the era of Columbus, astronomy was actually a required class for every European university student. And as a student now, I can tell you that that is definitely not the case anymore. And even though a lot of the knowledge that they had back then wasn't necessarily all correct, just the idea that it was a part of people's education shows that it was really, really important. And I know Columbus himself actually used this some sort of celestial navigation or knowledge in his navigations. I think that at one point he needed some help from the natives, but they wouldn't help him, and he actually used the science that he knew about astronomy to predict this lunar eclipse that he knew was happening soon, and he impressed them so much that they gave him what he wanted. I just thought that was interesting. So territories in Oceania, for example, and I know I had to look that up, but so I'll say it's part of the areas like around Australia. They placed a lot of great emphasis on navigation because there's a lot of islands in that area. The Gilbert Islands, for example, if you wanted to find an expert on stars, people would seek a Teobora or navigator. And the fact that astronomy and the stars were synonymous with navigation, which was a huge part of that culture, shows just how important it was. And then Micronesia and Polynesia, which are pretty big areas. I believe the Gilbert Islands are found in Micronesia, but those are just big areas. The astronomers in these areas were often considered to be specialists. Sciences like geography, astronomy, navigation were known only to a few people. And you may think, well, does that mean it wasn't really important? On the contrary, it shows that it was incredibly important because only a few select people were able to indulge in the secrets of these sacred arts, which is just the high regard that astronomy was held in these cultures. And then a little bit more information. Some daily applications of astronomy included the fact that the weather and currents were believed to be held under the sway of Antares and the Pleiades. The calendar was divided into the time for voyaging associated with the ascent of the star Antares, and then a time to avoid voyages, which was marked by the rise of the Pleiades. And then this picture I have over here is a star compass of a Micronesian navigator, which was used to teach the art of navigation in other places like the Caroline Islands. This is all in a different language. I'm pretty sure that the top is north. That's what I read. And then in the present, some practical uses of astronomy, it declined rather gradually, but for the most part, a lot of them deteriorated pretty quickly once electric light was introduced. But someone interesting that I looked at was Philip Van Horn Weens, which was he was a 20th century naval captain, inventor, author. He was credited with a lot of these modern navigational methods and tools, but he pioneered several efforts in the field of navigation. But something that was special about him was that he advocated for using astronomy with technology, which was in contrast with the general attitude at the time, which was to just embrace all of the new technology that is coming out. But he said, a selenium cell will control the opening and closing of a door, but we need the door and the power to operate it. So in our context, the new technology that we have for this navigation is all well and good, but you really can't have that without the foundation of astronomy to back it up. And although he had these efforts, regardless of what he says, electronics are the preferred option a lot of times in modern navigation. Obviously, celestial navigation hasn't completely gone out the window. I know that the Navy still uses sky mapping, and some other people will use it, but a lot of times electronics are preferred, and people will have their eyes trained down on these instruments instead of up at the sky, especially if the stars aren't there to see if they're around populated areas. So I think that this quotation pretty much sums up this entire section. One of the consequences of regarding nature largely with a view toward how we can use it for our material benefit is that we have less use for nature as it is, including the starry heavens. Once we have our own biddable stars for lighting and other technologies to replace other celestial functions, such as keeping track of time or helping with navigation, The real stars overhead concern us little in our everyday affairs. So, considering all of this, you may wonder, if astronomy is a dying science, then how do you explain all of the progress and the discoveries that are being made in modern times? And well, I am so very glad you asked. Progress is certainly being made, and I'm obviously not going to deny that. There are outreach programs, such as what we do here. There is access to scientific discoveries more than ever before. Just it's all the information's at your fingertips. And technological advancements such as telescopes all help to increase the general appreciation and awareness of astronomy. But just because more knowledge of the universe exists today, it doesn't guarantee that people will care. That on its own, it really doesn't speak for the general perception of astronomy's significance. Although our telescopes can see farther than our eyes ever could, our natural vision is now restricted mostly to the small sphere over which we have control.
I call that the cell phone.
And then really, unless something is done to directly address the issue of light pollution on a global scale, things are not going to change, and in fact, they're going to get worse. So I really like this quotation. It puts a lot of things into perspective. 400 years ago, everyone in Florence could see the stars, but only Galileo had a telescope. Now everyone has a telescope, but no one can see the stars. So I want to look at some of the efforts that are being made to combat light pollution. There is really a severe lack of federal action regarding light pollution. There may be some legislation on smaller levels, but overall, light pollution isn't necessarily recognized as a full-fledged form of pollution like water pollution and air pollution like we talked about earlier. The International Dark Sky Association was actually founded in 1988 to address that and to educate the public about the value of the night sky. And so they lobby for a lot of lighting policy changes, and which they did get some success in. For example, in Arizona, there are these light pollution laws. For example, the streetlights have to be shielded at night in order to mitigate that light pollution. And the world atlases that we looked at, the first one was created in 2001. The new one was created in 2016. The World Atlas of Artificial Night Sky Brightness. It was the first effort to really gather a bunch of data and look at light pollution on a global scale. And like I said, it's a very excellent resource to look at and really put a lot of things into perspective. And then I know I tend to fall into the trap of looking just at the United States, but there are some efforts being made obviously in other countries and other continents too. For example, the Campaign for Dark Skies was established as a branch of the British Astronomical Association, which is the United Kingdom's principal amateur organization for astronomers. And it is the primary organization responsible for anti-light pollution lobbying in Britain. So something else that's interesting is that expert and amateur astronomers alike will often agree that a lack of awareness rather than resistance is the biggest problem. Because light pollution can be controlled if people on all levels are educated on the issue. But if you try to resist it without the issue being important to anybody or anyone being aware of it, the efforts are really going to be futile. So the more people that know about it, the more people may learn to care about it, and the more resistance we can actually put into effect. So ultimately, what does the future look like? Nowadays, you have to consider that there's really no hope for future generations unless people are made aware of the issues of light pollution, like I mentioned. And I know that this, according to one professor, is very, very true. In recent studies, fewer than half of the adults surveyed can describe basic concepts such as the Earth orbiting the sun, the causes of the seasons, the phases of the moon. And when he reminds his own students that they've had the chance to see the moon every night of their lives, they admit that they have never really thought about it. And as a high school student, I can tell you that this is exactly the attitude that you see with more students than those that that do appreciate it or do know even just the basic concepts, which is a really sad thought. So what? Why does this matter? Well, losing the stars means losing the one thing that has connected humans across every period of history. It has been an integral part of who we are since the beginning of our time. It has been the one constant that has spanned across time. And there's really no benefit to losing that. So considering this, the stars are still in the sky and they always will be. They haven't ceased to exist just because people have stopped caring about their existence. But they have vanished for many people and they will remain invisible until we start to realize that we have the power to bring them back. We're the ones who made them disappear. So ultimately it's our job to make the change so that they can shine brightly once again. So I want to end on this one quotation to kind of tie everything back together. And it's by Fabio Falci, who was one of the pioneers behind the New World Atlas that we talked about. So it is possible to imagine two scenarios for the future. Perhaps the current generation will be the final generation to experience such a light polluted world, as light pollution is successfully controlled. Alternatively, perhaps the world will continue to brighten, with nearly the entire population never experiencing a view of the stars, as in Isaac Asimov's Nightfall novel and short story. But obviously it's up to us to make that decision. So that's all I have. If we have any questions, that's great. I actually created this Google form that I would really appreciate if you filled out. It's really quick, just to give me a little bit of feedback on the presentation, and I'll post that link in the chat. Let me pull it back up.
How do you do what? Click on that link.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna post it in the chat. I just gotta find Zoom again.
Man, I thought that you did a great job.
Very good, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you, Samantha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you did do a good job of starting with telling a story, then tying your thesis back at the end. Because at first I thought you were drifting, then you did wrap it back in together. I'm like, okay, I see where you're going. One book I'll suggest, since you did a lot of history on navigation and some of the historical kind of relevance of astronomy or what it was used for, practical application, is a book by Davis-Sobel. It's Dabasobl. It's called Longitude. Because when navigation was going on, latitude was easy to find. Longitude was really hard, and we didn't really crack that nut until really the mid to late 19th century, because you have to have really good clocks. And there was a clockmaker in Britain. The king had offered this big prize for money, anyone who could make a clock that was good enough that could be used for seafarers to be able to calculate based on time their longitude accurately. And this guy made a clock that could fit the bill, but it kept getting rejected by the Astronomer Royal because he kept wanting an astronomical solution. And people kept coming up with all these complicated schemes, but none of them ever worked. And so the guy never got his money. I think his family ended up did after they kept petitioning, because all the captains were like, I'm not messing with this. I'm buying this guy's clock, his ship's chronometer, because it worked. I'll also state that because I was a naval officer, I was the first class of naval officers not to learn celestial navigation. I graduated in 2002. Class of 2001, a lot of the guys right before me, that was the class they all hated, and they bitched about it. I didn't have to take it. Now that I'm in this drama, I wish I kind of did learn it, but
yeah, last year,
class of 2002 did not learn celestial navigation.
Last year, Jeff Goldstein gave us a class on celestial navigation. Of course, it went over my head, but it was very interesting.
But I was also on submarines, and yeah, Celestial doesn't do great anyway. But like I said, none of the officers learned it, even though it was up on us, given on the
Yeah.
surface.
And George, she didn't post that link yet on the chat, so
She's
I'll be
trying.
glad to.
We lost our link. We lost our
We lost Zoom for a
what
minute.
lost Zoom for a minute on my computer, so I got it on the Chromebook right now. But she's
Okay,
back on the computer. She's posting the link.
okay.
I'm gonna have to read Nightfall too. That is a good book. I've read it. It's a very short story. You can find it on Google. If you just Google Nightfall by Isaac Asimov, it'll come up. You can find
Yeah,
places
super
where you
cool.
detect.
I saw after Samantha mentioned it, I looked online and there's a free audio book for it too. You can download from Audible.
Okay. Yeah, it's not a long book. It's a sit down, one sitting type read.
Samantha posted the link, so if you want to do the survey, it's up now.
Very short. There's only 3 multiple choice questions and 1 for comments.
I'll pose the question, be a devil's advocate. When you were talking about the death of astronomy due to light pollution, I can almost disagree to that to a pretty good extent when you're talking about the advances in the space, because we can overcome that easily with technology. If you're using a photo detector, you don't care about sky glow because you can just increase exposure time. And since it's pretty uniform in the background, for a science, I know like the astrophotographer guys, they're going to go the dark side for a pretty picture. But as somebody who does photometry for scientific uses, I don't care. I don't give a rip. I just increase my exposure time, and because it's fairly uniform, I can calculate that extinction. Or most of the devices that we use now for any kind of discoveries are in space anyway, because we're, a much bigger issue than light pollution is our atmosphere. And so when you look at, if you want to go into the whole range of the EM spectrum, you really do have to get out of the atmosphere.
That's all well and good for science, but what about us guys who just like to look at the stars?
Well, that's a different question, because I'd say someone who's a visual observer, it definitely is a big deal. But it was being framed as the destroyer of astronomy. And I would disagree with that. But I do agree that for the casual observer, but at some point you do want to inspire people to become astronomers, and a lot of people do tie that back. I know there's one thing I try to do outreach around here, like when there's meteor showers, I get people in my neighborhoods, look at meteor showers, but I can't explain to them, like, it's like, oh, I got to wait 15, 20 minutes and I see a little streak here. I can't explain to them the time where I saw a meteor shower when I was still at Virginia Tech. I went to the mountain in West Virginia, Brush Mountain, and saw a geminid. And it was like nonstop, like the whole sky was on fire because I was in a dark sky. I was on top of a mountain at 2,000 feet, and it was breathtaking. It's like, I'm trying to explain it to people, but it's like, it's hard unless you actually experience that. And
Any questions?
Not a question. George, I sent you a link and an email with some stuff that you might find interesting
Okay.
about dark sky stuff and what the people can do. It was a very good presentation though.
Yeah, I really liked it. I do presentations for a living pretty much, and it was very good. I would include maybe a couple wow photos, maybe of stuff in the night sky that you can observe. Maybe like Orion Nebula is very good. Maybe the Lagoon Nebula, something like that you could see. And then I would just throw that in there. Everything else I really, really enjoyed. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't really have time to find a bunch of pictures. Full disclosure, I put this together over a couple of days this week because I didn't have time to do it before then. I've had so much going on at school.
She had a deadline. She had to have it done by a certain date. And just yesterday, she found out they extended the deadline. So now she's got some time to add some stuff to it.
Yeah.
Well, that answers another question, because I was wondering, because the background was super cool. And I was like, was that graphically designed by you, or is that something you were able to find somewhere?
No, I definitely cheated a little bit because I needed it to look pretty, but I didn't have time to make it look pretty. So I found a couple of themes, but I found two that I really like. So I actually combined them in the same presentation and just chose like how to alternate them and all of that.
Since it's not a graded project, plagiarism is your friend.
Well, actually, I did include the two credit slides at the end that they told me to include by using those presentations. I didn't like go through, you know, my bibliography and the credit slides, but they're there, I promise.
I filled out your survey, and everybody should at least do that. I guess she needs lots of support and credit. So I filled out mine.
Thank
Thanks.
It's in the
you.
chat.
Our
If you need help navigating, let me know. I'll show you where the chat thing is.
One thing that would be nice to add too is it wasn't really communicate clear like what you could do. Like you did a good job of identifying a problem. You did it through telling a story, which is definitely more impactful than just like giving bullet points. And so that was clearly communicated and well done. But then if someone's like, okay, what do I do about it? Or if I'm interested in learning more, that wasn't there. So I was thinking you could probably even condense down some of the history stuff, which I found interesting, but it wasn't in the same frame of where you were going arc-wise, and add more of, if you really want to combat this, end it with, take it to that, that direction.
Maybe a link to IDA.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, tell people to shield their lights, turn off their porch light. You don't need those lights on, turn it off. Especially if you live by an astronomer.
Yes, when your neighbor knocks on your door and asks you to turn your security lights off, please just do it.
Especially if your astronomer has a 22 rifle.
Yeah, pellet gun makes less noise.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. I can't get my neighbor to turn his porch light off for anything. He's under the impression that it's going to deter criminals. But it's like you're just giving them light to see what they're doing.
Yeah, if we were to go back to that slideshow, the one she showed about glare, there was a guy standing in the shadows, but you couldn't see him because the glare from the light was blinding your eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yes.
speaking of lights, speaking of neighbors, we had a neighbor who left his porch light on, his back porch light on all night. And one night I just went over behind the fence, over his fence, and unscrewed the light bulb. It was like that for a long time. I had a nice dark sky for a while.
I've done that. As opposed to I had to do a blanket over it. Yeah.
I missed
Just you guys
part of
explain
the,
yourself to them. Calculate how much money they're spending and be like, look, you gotta save yourself some coin, man.
Yeah, they'll probably stick an LED in.
well, I was
Mike.
gonna say, I missed part of the beginning of the brief, but it wouldn't be bad to have a slide describing the difference between CFLs and LEDs and incandescents and stuff, and with some actual numbers on the glow and stuff like that, and the temperature that comes out of them and things like that. And it wouldn't be bad to have one or two on that, and that can it gives people an idea, like on if they have a choice when they go to Home Depot or Lowe's, to maybe pick out the one that isn't as bright for their porch lights and things like that.
Yeah, there's good points and bad points of LEDs. If you're talking to people about light pollution and the expense, well, LEDs are much less expensive, but you got to address with LEDs the color of the light and the brightness, lumens, and that's where we have a problem with LEDs.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
why I mentioned like the heat. They always have a 6,000
Calvin.
candlelight and stuff like that. And but just
just pinging a little bit on that can give somebody another idea on how to combat the light pollution.
Samantha, I took a course from the Kalamazoo Astronomical Society, and section 2 of their presentation had a lot to do with light pollution. It's in a PDF. If you'd like, I can forward that to you to your email.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, was put together by Richard Bell, the president of the Kalamazoo Astronomy Club, and he's given us full permission to use this material. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, you can send that to me
Yeah.
and I'll give it to Samantha.
Okay, I'll do that when we're through here.
Thank you.
On the street lights, Virginia Power is using cutoff lights to replace the older ones that burn out. And I asked one of the supervisors, why don't you just replace them all? They said, well, no, we'd rather just do it as they burn out and get old. So Virginia Power knows about it, and I'm glad they're doing something about it too. They're using the cutoffs that only shine down, you know, those little flat lights. I think they have them on Nemo Parkway, I believe. I've seen those.
Yeah, all the new ones are the full cutoff, but it's more expensive to try to replace them all at once.
No other questions from anybody? Well, thank you once again, Samantha, for the great presentation.
Very good.
And I guess if no one's got anything else, we can draw the meeting to a close. We'll get my gavel.
Official.
Meeting adjourned.